So we'd like to bring out our two candidates. Republican Glenn Morrison and Democrat Andre LaFond. So this one's an easy on the ballot. This is a check yes or no, so I don't have to read anything to you. But Mr. Morrison, if you'd start us off and just give us a 30-second introduction of yourself, sure. And we'll do the same for Mr. LaFond, and then we'll have some Q&A, and then a 60-second wrap-up.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, everybody, for being here. My name's Glenn Morrison. Obviously, I'm the Republican candidate for Constable for the Maricopa Stanfield Justice Court Precinct number 4, soon to be renamed, and they're still actually settling on the final name, but it should be Western Pinal Justice Court. I've been running now for 15 months. Folks, it has been a long 15 months, let me tell you. I am currently with the Pinal County Sheriff's Office as a volunteer. I've been preparing for this job for the last 7 years with the Sheriff's Office, and I love to serve my community. That's why I'm running for the office. Thanks.
Howdy, everyone. My name is Andre LaFond. Thank you very much for coming. For those of you watching, thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Morrison, for explaining the saga going on with the redistricting of soon-to-be 4. I've been preparing for this position for 15, 16 years. I am an Army veteran, and I've been in private law enforcement for the last 14 years. I've used that as a way of serving the community, catching criminals, arrests, making sure our places of business and our communities are a little safer. I'm looking to bring that to the position of constable, experience dealing with dangerous situations with a interesting mix of customer service. And that's my creed, committed to the community. That's what I want to bring the constable position to. It's not a black and white position. It's here to serve you. Thank you.
In one sentence, would you please describe what a constable does?
You elect 2 law enforcement people every couple of years. Well, 1 in 2 years, 1 in the other. The first is a sheriff. He enforces your laws. Your constable is the one that issues out papers from the courts. He's the one that will be dealing with you personally at your home or business.
One sentence? Cool. The constable enforces the orders of the court on behalf of the citizen who requests the action.
Do you gentlemen think that this should be an elected position?
Who do you want to go first? Absolutely.
And why?
The constable, just like the county sheriff, is an elected peace officer. The major differences are that the county sheriff manages an organization of law enforcement professionals, and the justice court constable enforces the orders of the court. Some of those orders may involve monetary property seizures or arrests, because the constable does have the power to arrest, seize property, seize cash. Therefore, it has to be, by law, an elected position.
Mr. LaFond?
Well, I don't know what I can add to that. I agree with everything he just said. I guess I would add an addendum that at the core, the reason why it should be an elected position, held accountable directly to the people, is because, again, that is who they are interacting with on a daily basis. That is who they're meant to serve. It's the community asking for a member of it to take on this delicate procedure.
To that end, should it, you've both agreed that it makes sense that it's a elected position. Should it be partisan?
Absolutely not. That's been one of the things that I try to explain in my campaign is it's partisan on paper, but it's not a position that creates laws, policies. It's simply an execution position. Who can do the duties the best, with the best intent, and the best service to the community.
By the same token, it is partisan because it's an elected peace officer position. The position itself is colorblind. I'm going to steal a phrase from our mayor. Christian Price often says, potholes are not Republican or Democrat. They don't care who fills them. The people that we will serve don't care whether we're Republican or Democrat, just like they don't really care whether the judge who issued the order on their behalf is Republican or Democrat. And frankly, constables don't ask when they show up to execute an order whether or not you're Republican or Democrat. Constables don't care. But it is a partisan position under law because the voters have a right to know the political leanings of candidates that they are electing to an office, that has this kind of power, authority, and responsibility.
Yes, go ahead.
You are right. It is by law partisan. But Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party, Republican, if a person is experienced for the position, is going to execute the duties lawfully, effectively, and serve the community, what does it matter what their party is? You won't find on my signs my party affiliation, and other than a small location on my website saying I'm a Democrat, you will not find anything dealing with national topics of politics, law, other than my ability and my experience.
A quick rebuttal before we take questions from the audience.
You're right. It doesn't matter whether a constable is Democrat or Republican, but the voters have a right to know which way any candidate for any office leans. My signs do say that I'm a Republican because I didn't want there to be any question.
Thank you. We have a question from the audience.
Yeah, we have 2 audience member questions.
Thank you very much. My name is Linda James, and I think you've already answered the question. That was my question. Why, in your opinion, should this position be a partisan elected position? And how does that impact your role as constable? Or how do you think that impacts your role as constable, that is being partisan, one side or the other? Basically, you already answered it, but try again.
We did answer it. We have to be partisan. The responsibilities are not partisan, and the partisan politics play no role whatsoever. In fact, I've made public statements in one of my videos that clearly states that the constable must exercise the duties of the office without personal bias or political influence.
And I stand by that the position, your political affiliation, your political beliefs have no impact. I don't care whether or not my sheriff is concerned about the water policies for Arizona. I do not care whether or not my sheriff is concerned about national topics on tax, gun rights, whatnot. I want him to execute the duties of law enforcement. So a dutifully position of constable is a law enforcement position. It shouldn't matter what our political positions are. So again, I don't have any on my signs, on my website. I just simply explain the position and how I would approach it.
Thank you. Next question?
We have 2 more questions.
All right, my question to you guys is, what have you done to prepare yourself for this position? What have you done outside of campaigning, you know, training, anything? What have you done to prepare yourself for this position?
Andre, why don't you start?
That's a good question. Thank you. Well, again, I am an Army veteran. It means that I'm trained in conflict issues. I took on a position of responsibility to the community. I'm a 3rd-generation Eagle Scout. Leadership, commitment to the people is ingrained in me. As for experience preparing for this position, 14 years of private law enforcement. That means I've been working with public law enforcement officials, officers, on cases, on arrests. I have personally apprehended hundreds of suspects, hundreds of them. People as benign as a little old lady with a walker, to hardened criminals facing tens of years, dozens of years in prison. I've dealt with violence. I've dealt with fear. I've dealt with innocence being corrupted. That is my experience with this position. Recently, I've been working with, partnering with the police department, going to events such as Coffee with the Cop, to Coffee with the Chief, to hear about the concerns here locally, to build the relationship with those persons showing up and to partner with law enforcement, hear their concerns, so that I can better execute the duties of this position and extend the office of Constable to truly serve the community.
The question, I want to make sure I understand the question clearly. I can see you back there, so nod or do this. You're asking specifically, outside of campaigning, I believe is what you said, what we have done to prepare for this position. Yes? This position, exactly. Okay. Well, for starters, I started establishing relationships with the people that would be my partners in this position. Started with Sheriff Mark Lamb. Happily, I already have a relationship with the Sheriff's Office because I've been with the Sheriff's Office for the last 7 years. I know virtually every deputy by first name and their families who work in this area. The reason that's important, obviously, is because in the event that a constable gets in trouble outside the city limits, what do? They have to call on the Sheriff's Office for assistance. Those guys already know me. Those guys and ladies already know me. They work with me on a daily basis. They know they can trust me. They know that I trust them implicitly because we all trust each other with our lives out there. I wear the same uniform that they do. I do much the same jobs that they do. There are a couple of exceptions that are very notable, but when I roll out of a patrol vehicle that's parked in front of my house when I'm on duty, there's very little difference in uniform between myself and a deputy. There's also virtually no difference in training because we take all of the same classes that deputies do. We take all of the same in-service training that deputies do. We respond to all of the same calls that deputies do. Why is that important? Because conflict resolution in life or death situations is a daily occurrence. Conflict resolution, de-escalation is key in the constable's role. So I established the relationship with the sheriff. I can tell you for a fact that I'm the only candidate who has ever run for this race, right, that bothered to reach out to the sheriff and establish that relationship. I did the same thing with Chief Stahl. Had very good conversations on multiple occasions with the chief, only one formal official meeting, but several good conversations. I'm also very, very familiar with many of the boots on the ground, in other words, the officers on the beat here in Maricopa, because I work with them in uniform on a regular basis. I took the initiative to join as an associate member the Arizona Constables Association and have attended 2 different 3-day training sessions for the Constables Association, one back in January and one just last month up in Flagstaff at my own expense. I have established the relationships that are necessary in order to have good partnerships with other constables within the county and outside the county, and I'm endorsed by the president of the Constables Association. I'm supported by the sheriff. I've established the relationships with the folks that I have to work with locally, and that means local government. Folks like city council members, who I am endorsed by, Councilmember Manfredi, Councilmember Smith. The County Board of Supervisors is incredibly important to the constables because they oversee everything that constables do at a county level, and I'm endorsed by County Supervisor Tony Smith.
Endorsements,
These-
with all due respect, are
Right.
campaign.
Understood. I apologize. You're right. The relationships are what's important, right? Those relationships built in advance ease the transition into the position. The relationships that I've built prepare me fully, and I've also been on ride-alongs with our current constable, Brett Roberts. So I have the experience, I have the training, and all of the training from the sheriff's office, whether it be firearms, background checks, psych evals, it all translates over to the constable's office, because in order to carry a firearm, you have to do all those things, and they've already been paid for by the sheriff's office. So I'll save you thousands of dollars right there.
Yes, go ahead.
He mentioned a couple things I'd like to tag on. I've been building relationships as well. I have endorsements from a couple of city council members. Henry Wade, thank you very much. I have the endorsements of
Mr.
Marvin
LaFond.
Brown. Thank you, sir.
Specifically, the question from the audience member was, I understand that, and you got your chance to,
Just responding to him.
I understand that. So you both referenced your endorsements, so thank you very much. Do you think that
It's
as
also
far as
about
your specific work
experience. He talks a lot about being there on patrol. It's one thing to watch a situation unfold, especially when someone else is doing it. When I go and deal with someone, when I'm talking them out of violence, when I'm dealing with someone who is violent, when I'm disarming them, I don't have a gun, and I don't have someone standing next to me with a gun. I don't have a uniform that looks somewhat like a police officer's or sheriff's. This is my dress. I show up in a cotton shirt, and I'm able to disarm people verbally for the most part. Occasionally I've had to get involved physically. I have that experience. I've been doing it for over 14 years now.
Mr. LaFond, what is the single most important personality characteristic or skill set required of an excellent constable?
It's a tough question to answer because I don't see any one singular thing. You can say strength, but strength can become overpowering. You can say compassion, and compassion can become too soft. It's a blend. It's a jack of all trades. You have to be a well mix of everything, from insightfulness, experience, intelligence, to compassion, to commitment to execute the duties, and to strength to be able to take charge of a situation.
Thank you. Mr. Morrison, same question to you.
Communication skills across any socioeconomic class is key. I spent 30 years in corporate management over the course of my life in various pieces. I've managed teams of folks all over the world, and I've had to learn how to talk to every continent on this planet in a way that is creative and in a way that accomplishes goals. The goals that a constable has to accomplish is to, number one, be able to read and understand and properly execute the orders of the court, and two, be able to communicate in a way that is generally non-confrontational, that will de-escalate a situation for people who are having a really bad day, and do it in a way that is going to keep everybody in the area safe, themselves, the folks that they're dealing with, and the public at large. Having that wealth of experience is key.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions from the audience? I have one final question before we get to closing remarks. This is both of your first time running for elected office, is that correct?
Yes.
Has it met your expectations?
Wow. Could you define meeting expectations, please?
That is for you to decide. How has the process been? I mean, obviously, we talked about earlier about it. This is a very political and partisan position, for better or for worse. You had a competitive primary, Mr. Morrison. Mr. LaFond
I did.
Not.
I will answer this by referencing a conversation that I had with Constable Roberts before this started. And Constable Roberts looked me right in the eye and said, if you do this, you are going to make enemies and you are not going to like it. And I looked back at Constable Roberts and I said, if I run for an office, all I'm doing is running for an office. I'm applying for a job and I'm putting myself out there and I'm exposing myself, and I'm a very, believe it or not, private person, and I'm exposing myself asking for a job and presenting myself in a positive light. Why would that make me enemies? And he said, Glenn, people will hate you just because you're you when they've never met you before, they've never had a conversation with you, but they will completely hate you because you're not their guy. And I didn't understand that, and quite frankly, I didn't believe him. Meeting people, knocking on doors, shaking hands, introducing myself, talking about the office. I love meeting people, but I hate the acrimony that comes with running for an office. So it's exceeded my expectations, positively and negatively.
Mr. LaFond.
Running for this office has been eye-opening, educational. Going door to door, meeting people has been exceptional. Any other day of the week, you go door to door knocking, saying, hey, how you doing? People might look at you cross-eyed, but this gives a purpose to meet your neighbors, to meet the community. Additionally, it's given me an insight into our community, into, especially for this position, what it can do to benefit. One of the key places for me is domestic violence. And the constable is, when the orders come through the justice court, one of the key duties of the constable is orders of protection, protective orders. Serving someone who you're telling can't go home on behalf of someone who's afraid if they do. And I've met people who've gone through this on both sides, understanding the fear that drives it. The nature of these people, the victims of this who have opened up to me, is incredible, and I would not have been able to meet them otherwise. And it became a key part of my platform, partnership with the police department, partnership with law enforcement, speeding up the process of reporting of when these are issued out, because there's a giant divide between one, it's submitted to the courts as served, and one Maricopa Police Department even knows.
Met your expectations? Exceeded?
I'm coming to a point. So understanding this, learning about these intricate issues and how we can solve them has exceeded anything I could have ever anticipated with this campaign, with this election, with this position.
Thank you. Early ballots out next week. So, gentlemen, you have 60 seconds. Put your best foot forward. Let's start with you, Mr. LaFond, for closing remarks.
Well, as said many times, my name is Andre LaFond, and I am running for Constable. I am the candidate with 14 plus years of experience in private law enforcement. That means enforcing laws without a badge. That means dealing with suspects, criminals that could be violent, disarming them in a nature that protects themselves, myself, and others. Being able to deal with transgressions, deal with stress, deal with dangerous situations. I'm an Army veteran. My commitment to the community started in the height of Iraq and Afghanistan, and I joined a combat position. My commitment to the community stretches back to being an Eagle Scout, third generation. I've fought to exceed everything I've ever been taught so that I can be a better member of the community and serve those in which I live. Thank you. And please visit andrelafond.com. Thank you.
How much is it? 60 seconds? Wow, that's tough. Okay, so 60 seconds in a nutshell. Folks, I've been serving this community, putting my life on the line for thousands of hours over the course of the last 7 years. Mr. LaFond made a mention of something a moment ago. I'm just going to give it a quick rebuttal. Clearly, he has no idea what we do as volunteers for the Sheriff's Office because we don't stand by on the sidelines. We are directly involved in everything that happens on the road. Very directly involved. That said, I am the only person who actually has law enforcement experience on this stage. I'm the only person who is endorsed by law enforcement agencies and unions. I'm the only person who has ever been in this race who has actual Arizona law enforcement experience. I'm here to serve. I've been serving you for years already. I simply want to take my service to the next level. I'm the best person for this job, and I look forward to serving you as your next constable. Morrison for Constable.com. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. Without your participation, we don't have a process. Have a great day.
Thank you, gentlemen, both.